Bonjour, fuckers. I'm glad to be back with you on another fantastic week on this Thursday morning on the Fantasy Freestyle podcast. It's been another insane week of matchups in the NFL and in our own fantasy league, so I'm happy to go over it all with you here.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, first of all, I'd like to cover the most important league news, which is Flag Football Day. The time is coming where we're in October. Basically, in a couple weeks, it's going to start to feel a little better outside. It's not going to be hot. We could actually go and have some fun at the park. And so, what we need to discuss is a good day for the Flag Football Day. And I'm thinking maybe second weekend of November, Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon maybe. Saturday afternoon is better for me. But I want to iron out the date so that we can all make sure that we have enough time to plan it in our schedules to get together and have a good old time tossing the rock. And I mean, we got a lot of other stuff to go over. So let's go ahead and get that popping in the group chat. Mention what's the good date for you. We can all get together and make sure that the most of us can show up and we can have like at least a solid 3-on-3, maybe 4-on-4, hopefully. But yeah, let's get that popping. And so we have a lot to go over this week, and we're just going to get right into it. Right off into the
Not a bad day. You take everyone down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around.
Tuesday Blues. And I think this is the first time in our league history, or at least since I've been doing the podcast, where Tuesday Blues has been a thing, where we have 3 weeks in a row with Tuesday Blues. Anyway, this week it is Chef versus Henson. I'm going to do a little bit more of a breakdown of their matchup later in the episode, but for now, we apologize, Chef, that your cereal tastes so salty because of your tears. I also wanted to introduce a new award this week. Well, kind of new because I think I mentioned it before, but this week was one where it's particularly prevalent because we have 3 cases of the Toned Glutes Award. That's right. That's matches where they were constantly clenching their buttocks, which means they're going to have toned glutes after their matchups. The lead changes constantly, going back and forth. And like I said, 3 of those happened this week, which included Greg and Eric, me and Raul, and Henny and Cody. And I know I mentioned it last week, but still Shit, I'm editing this video and I realized I forgot to shout out to the Dub Club. Raul, Henny, Eric, Edwin, and Janel Hertz. Now back to the regular looking video. Continuing on this week, the standings are insane. We have 2 guys that are 4-0, so a tie for first place. And the rest of the league is 1 win apart. Tied split down the middle. 4 of us at 2-2 and 4 of us at 1-3. So I mean, if you ever thought about giving up on a league in the beginning of the season, just look at this shit. It's week 4 and it's basically still week 1. And this week was a hell of a week for the bench warmers. Starting off with yours truly, Justice Hill left on my bench with 18 points. Not to mention Michael Pittman with 14 points. Raul had Tony Pollard with 17.8, as well as Jamison Williams with 15. Donnie had DeAndre Swift with 26 points. Eric had Geno Smith with 27.5. Chase Brown with 22, Xavier Worthy with 14.8. Janel Hertz had Jared Goff with 34.6 points, and Jordan Reed with 23.6 points. Henny left on his bench Ken Walker with a whopping 31 points, and Jordan Addison with 21 points. Total put together for a 6-man roster, meaning 1 quarterback and 5 skill players, equals 164.7, which beats everybody in our league this week. Guys, what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, We should just have the bench as an 11th team in our league, and if they beat all of us at the end of the season, we all get our money back. I mean, if we don't get these points out, then we're going to end up with a lot of constipated rosters. Which leads us to this week's victims. Unfortunately, I myself had a constipated roster with the aforementioned Justice Hill, which would have won me my week, and more about that later on in the matchup recap. But Donnie also had a constipated roster. If he would have played Swift instead of Rico Dowdle and the Vikings defense instead of the Texans defense, that would have been enough to put him over the hump. And Greg, if he would have played Wandale instead of Rashi and Jerome Ford instead of Devon Achan, which I don't blame him for not making these choices because you pretty much would have to be a madman to have started those guys over the other guys. But alas, the result is that 3 of the 5 matchups this week were lost due to constipation. All right, so let's go ahead and run through this week's fantasy matchup recap. To start it off, we had one perfectly even clapping of exactly 20 points of Eric over Greg with 120 to 100. This was one of those toned glutes matchups I was talking about. You can see here where the curve, it really just matches up the whole time. That just means it was neck and neck. Plus, if you're just paying attention to the matchups, you could have told that this was a good one. Greg's team, strong as always. CJ Stroud with 345 yards with 2 pass touchdowns. An insane game. Alvin Kamara was 77 with a rushing touchdown for a total of 21 points. CeeDee Lamb with 98 and 1. And the rest of his roster was pretty tame, but still got him over the single barrel landmark. On the other side, Kyler Murray had a kind of mediocre game, 142 pass yards with 1 passing touchdown. But Derrick Henry, my God, Derrick Henry. If you guys watched him in that game with the Buffalo Bills, with the shot where the 3 receivers are chasing after him and they look like little kids, insane. So almost 200 yards with 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving, for a total of 37 points. Another standout performance was by Chuba Hubbard. Who would have guessed? 104 with 1 rushing touchdown. And the Colts DST had a little bit to add on there with 4 sacks, 2 fumbles, and a total of 12 points overall. In the next matchup, this one was not so close. Edwin beat Donnie with 113 points to 94, with Jordan Love showing out with 389 pass yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Am I reading that right? Holy moly. Stephon Diggs had 69 receiving yards, nice, and a rushing touchdown for a total of 16 points. Aaron Jones had 93 rush yards and 43 receiving yards, and his kicker and DST both hauled in over 10 points to bring him to that stable 113 mark. On the other hand, Josh Allen had a pretty abysmal performance, even though I think he did get hurt for a little bit, but overall they got blown out by Baltimore, which left him with only 6.1 points. Jonathan Taylor had 18 points, and Rico Dowdle had 12, with Deontay Johnson had 17. Even Terry McLaurin had 14 points, so overall, I mean, not a bad performance. If only he had better quarterback play, this matchup would have been more competitive and might have even been a win, but as it sits, both of these teams go to 2-2. Next up is the Bears-Packers matchup of our league history between the founder and the co-founder of the league, myself and Raul. Although a valiant matchup it was, he gained the victory over me this time with 145 over 135. On his side, he had Baker Mayfield, who was just amazing with 347 yards with 2 pass touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. James Conner had 104 and 1. Jordan Mason had 123 and 1. Justin Jefferson caught a touchdown. Marvin Harrison caught a touchdown. Jake Moody even had 12 points from the kicker position. On my side, Younghoe Koo had 18, which is crazy. And then we had Mike Evans, which was the beneficiary of those Baker Mayfield touchdowns to the tune of 19 points. Kyron Williams with 18 points. Zach Moss with 15. And Jaden Daniels with 28. Overall, valiant fought matchup. Absolutely lived up to the hype. I handshake you, Raul, my buddy, and I will see you in Week 13. In the next matchup, Jalen Hurts got their second clapping of the year, and a healthy clapping it was, over Vonski with a score of 118-69. Nice. Dak Prescott threw for 221 and 2, with Jahmyr Gibbs rushing for 2 touchdowns. Chase caught 85 and 1, and their kicker Aubrey scored 10 points. But here's the whopper. The 49ers defense came in with 30 whole points, able to just whip Vaughn's unfortunately injured ass, whose team only had Patrick Mahomes trying to claw his way to the victory with 245 and 1 passing touchdown. But everyone else on his team had mediocre, less than 10-point performances. I hope all the best for Vaughn, and honestly, it's tragic for the loss of Christian McCaffrey. But the way the league is right now, we're still only 1 victory away from each other. And so Vaughn has a good chance with waivers or some kind of trade to work his way back and still save his season. And last but not least, we had another clapping with 114 from Henny's team, beating the 93 points that Chef's team was able to put up. Henny's team had Joe Burrow with 232 and 2, as well as Bijan with 101 and 1. Amon-Ra also had 45 with 1 receiving touchdown and a passing touchdown. That game was amazing, and those uniforms are fucking hard. Yeah. David Montgomery capped it off with a 40 rush yard, 40 receiving yard line, as well as a rushing touchdown. Was able to take the victory, even though his Bills defense scored exactly 0. On the other side, Chef had Nico Collins with 151 and 1 receiving touchdown, and Lamar Jackson with 156 with 2 pass touchdowns and 54 rush yards with the rushing touchdown, which is an amazing performance. All the other players on his team scored almost 0 or 0. If we're talking about Mark Andrews, yeesh, that man is cooked. But Chef will hope to redeem his season like the rest of us sitting at 1-3 in his next matchup in Week 5. And before I release you fuckers into the world to go on to your work day or whatever you have planned for this beautiful Thursday morning, we're going to go over tonight's matchup in the Buccaneers taking on the Falcons in Atlanta. The over-under is 44 with the Falcons favored by 3. Usually when you see a line where the home team is just favored by 3, it means that Vegas takes it as a toss-up. They don't really know where to put their money. So, with me being 2-2 so far for the season, I'm going to go ahead and be a little bit more mellow with it, and I'm going to take the Bucs money line. I think that Baker Mayfield on the hot hand with Mike Evans is going to go off. The Falcons are pretty decent with Bijan Robinson and their rushing attack, but I think Tampa Bay goes on the road and takes the victory in this matchup. And if not, it'll be the first time this season where I'm actually in the negative for my overall forfeit for the season. Make sure you guys are thinking of those crazy creative punishments if I get this wrong, and drop them in the group chat when you think of them. But in the meantime, let's enjoy this Week 5 of NFL and fantasy football. Good luck in your matchups. May the best rosters win. Take your Thursday night players out of the flex, and I'll see you next week on the Fantasy Freestyle Podcast.